Hey everybody, welcome back to the RGR Football Channel on YouTube. This is Daniel Harms, and today we're going to do a little bit of a different approach with this video. It's going to be a little more off the cuff than normal. You're going to really get to see more of a riffing side of me that you saw a little bit on the Q&A on Monday night when I was talking about the whole Mac Jones versus Justin Fields and Trey Lance conversation. So if you want to see that, you can go ahead and watch the end of the live stream there where I really get into it because man, when I talk about things like that really get me fired up. It doesn't make any sense that you would move up to draft Mac Jones when you have Justin Fields, even Trey Lance staring you in the face that have better potential in the NFL with all the things they do. So that's there for Monday night from the Monday night Q&A. But I think today we're going to start a little bit with the conversation that really kind of took over Twitter last night with the announcement that Julian Edelman was going to be retiring. Now, as you can see, I'm already smiling a little bit because the notion that Julian Edelman is a Hall of Famer is not only laughable, it is an incredible injustice and disrespectful to the rest of those that have made it into the Hall of Fame. Yes, he won 3 Super Bowls, but this is not a quarterback that won those 3 Super Bowls. It's a wide receiver that made some plays in a Super Bowl. He has a Super Bowl MVP because nobody else that played in that Super Bowl against the Rams was any good. Nobody. He was the best player in the game. So, of course, he was going to get the MVP in that game. There was nobody else that was even good. It was between him or Gronk because we all know Tom Brady didn't play well in that game. So, it's very difficult to really when I look at an argument that somebody like Julian Edelman, who's he had a long career in the NFL, but he's a slot receiver. He never even made a Pro Bowl. He never even made any All Pro teams. It's being suggested that he's a Hall of Famer. You can't put somebody in the Hall of Fame who did not have a Hall of Fame career in terms of the stats, the things that he does making the Pro Bowls. Because unfortunately, as it stands, the Pro Bowl is heavily weighted and valued by the Hall of Fame committee. Never made an all pro team. He was never at the top of his game. He was never considered a top 10, top 15 wide receiver in the NFL because he's a slot receiver who makes plays and makes third down conversions. So the best thing that really came out of this was comparing his situation to Eli Manning, who won 2 Super Bowls as a quarterback on a largely mediocre offensive team, and you can tell that by the Super Bowls that they won against the Patriots, funnily enough. But Eli Manning probably will make it in someday. I don't think he should make it in either because his career arc does not suggest to me that he's a Hall of Fame player. This is not the Hall of you won Super Bowls. It's the Hall of Fame. These guys have to be at the top of their game, at the top of the NFL. Neither of them were ever really at the top of the NFL. Eli had a couple good years with with OBJ in when he was first in New York. So, and even those, like I said, those years that they won the Super Bowl, it was mostly because their defense shut down the Patriots and it forced them to play a conservative game, something that the Giants were very much used to. They were used to playing defensive, slow offensive games. So this whole situation with Hall of Fame now being like a Super Bowl, yeah, you win Super Bowls, you get in. It's absolutely ridiculous and laughable to me. I can't even begin to tell you the disrespect to some of the players who are in the Hall. Granted, it has been easier to get into the Hall of Fame, in my opinion, in the last decade or so, just based on some of the people that have got in over, some other players. It's very, very difficult situation. But yeah, it kind of just goes to show you that recency bias and Super Bowl bias is a real thing, and people truly think that playoff experience and playoff and making plays in the playoffs, regardless of whether you're a quarterback or a wide receiver or whatnot, is really the most important thing. When in reality, if you're going to make it into the Hall of Fame, you need to be at the top of the NFL in your position for a sustainable amount of time, in my opinion. It also helps to win a couple of Super Bowls, an MVP-ish type of thing, whether you're a defensive player or, so that would be offensive player of the years and defensive player of the years and maybe Super Bowl MVP, things like that. Making Pro Bowls and All Pros is also kind of important for that too. So as we get into this more, we're going to actually have some real Chiefs discussion here, which we're going to go ahead and jump into right now because with a lot of these mock drafts, I feel like some of them, in terms of the big name, the national media people that throw out these mock drafts, have a script to follow, and they're not exactly doing their due diligence on the team or where the team really needs to go in terms of who's on the board. So we're going to just kind of read some things about what's been going on with this. And we're going to start with this little blurb here on the Arrowhead Pride website from a from a CBS sports analyst, Ryan Wilson. He published a 2-round mock. I'm just reading it word for word here, right here. And yeah, I don't care so much about the Washington football team, but it has the Chiefs taying Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah out of Notre Dame. I don't think he's going to fall that far to begin with, but let's just assume that he does, okay? Let's assume that he falls to the Chiefs at 31. Why would the Chiefs select a player who typically projects as a strong safety in the NFL in the first round? Why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense. And he actually goes on later to say that a lot of people in the NFL project him to be a strong safety in the NFL. He's not built to play linebacker. Maybe a nickel linebacker if he puts on some weight, but he needs to put weight on if he's going to play in the NFL as a nickel linebacker. Because otherwise, you're going to just run every time you see the defense in nickel, and you're going to be able to just move him out of the way. He's not strong enough and not big enough to play as it stands right now as an off-ball linebacker, as like a Mike or a nickel linebacker in any real defense, unless you want to put weight on him. So I get with some interesting issues in terms of players are gone there, but it doesn't make any sense to me to pick him just because. I think that you really need a plan in place for Owusu-Koramoah. He's not going to be on this defense, and he's not going to be a guy unless you put weight on him and have him be more downhill and read those run lanes properly, get in those gaps, and really be able to make some noise at the line of scrimmage. He can't really do that right now with his engaging. So that's a big issue for me. Also, he projects them to take Kendrick Green, an interior offensive lineman with the 63rd pick. Not the center. He's a guard. Yes, he's a very athletic guard in terms of size, explosion, some speed, but he didn't test with his short area quickness. I don't if I read that wrong, that's my apologies. But he actually projects as a day 3 player. I watched some of his film, not a whole lot because he wasn't on the top of my list with the offensive lineman, interior offensive lineman. He's a guy that does project on day 3, and he has him going in the second round, the end of the second round. I'm not entirely sure what's going on here. Like, why are we looking at just throwing offensive linemen on the Chiefs without even looking at what they actually need? It doesn't make any sense. And I get they have a pedigree with taking an Illini offensive lineman, taking Allegretti, but they have Allegretti. Why would you just take almost the same kind of player? It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make sense. So this whole 2-round mock nonsense that we're going to continue to get into is really what pushed my buttons today. And I can tell you right now that, yeah, I understand that national media people don't have it as shared of an interest in a specific team as obviously Ryan and I do. But it's not hard to see that wide receiver is more of a need in terms of what the Chiefs need outside of Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. It's not hard to see that maybe they can just trade back. And if you have to pick, I get it. There are other linebackers in the first round, likely. Zaven Collins, I would take over Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I would definitely do that. I would probably, I would not take Jamin Davis. I think he's a second round player. Speaking of Jamin Davis, that brings me to the next mock, where he's the first overall selection for the Chiefs at 31 from, where is this? Last Word on Sports. I can't say that I have heard very much of this website, but again, we have a mock here. And it was performed using the Draft Network. Okay, so they use the Draft Network profiles. I gotcha. So Let's see here. First overall pick, Jamin Davis. Again, I told you guys I think that he is a second round draft pick, a good linebacker who's got a lot of potential. You'll notice that a lot of these picks for the Chiefs aren't players that can come in and just be what they are. They can't necessarily start day one. And I don't think that Jamin Davis is a guy that can start day one. He needs some grooming. Again, second round prospect. I really do like him though. I can tell you guys, I really like his potential if he's on, if he's a second round draft pick. I think that at 63, or maybe if they trade back a little ways into the second round, that's where you want to get him. At 31, it's not one, linebacker isn't as valued a position anymore, and two, he's not valued as a first round player. I know he's been moving up boards quite a bit, but he's just not that type of player. I don't get, stop drafting players that the Chiefs can't use right away in the first round. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah would not start. He wouldn't play. He would be the replacement for Dan Sorensen eventually, more and more likely than not. So again, you need to get players that can come in and play. Second round, again, a little bit of a reach, a bit of a reach here with Quinn Miners. I do think that he's going to come in and be really, really good. And that's going to be someone that can actually come in and start at center, guard, whatever you want right away. Probably could use a year to learn the NFL ropes. So if you're going to draft him, you already have your center and guards in place for next year, and then you could let him grow. So I do like it. James Hudson, a guy who I really liked at the beginning of the process, watched some of his tape, saw his testing numbers that were not good. And yeah, James Hudson, not a great fit for what the Chiefs want to do, in my opinion. That's kind of a miss on two levels. You have the miss on a first round pick and a miss on the third round pick, where you need to have a tackle over an interior offensive lineman going forward. You need a tackle, a guy who can play right away. Ideally, James Hudson is 2 years away probably from being a guy who has starter ability. He's got a lot of potential. But again, it's a big guy who was a defensive lineman at Michigan. He made the switch to offensive tackle, played at Houston, and not very good. And again, we're seeing some issues with the logic of the whole situation. It's because the Chiefs' blocking was atrocious in the Super Bowl. They were playing with backups. They're playing with backups. You're going to draft a tackle with James Hudson, who is a backup right now. He's not going to be, he doesn't have the potential to start this year or maybe not even next year. You don't really know what he is because he's still a work in progress. It's like it's essentially like taking a defensive tackle like Isaiah or was it Isaiah McKenzie that they took, who was a defensive tackle, and they tried to convert him to an offensive lineman. Sometimes doesn't work out, and I know that he has some good tape from at Cincinnati. It's not. No, it's Houston. It's Houston. Sorry, I'm just throwing some things out. It's definitely Cincinnati. He's from Cincinnati, but you don't really know what he's going to be in the NFL. He did some good things, moving guys around and being a big, imposing offensive tackle. But again, it's a raw prospect. He's not a guy that you do really have any semblance of knowing what he's going to be. I get taking a guy like that in the third round. It's not a bad thing. But again, you're talking about first round and second round passing on your biggest need, when sometimes in the second round you can probably reach for that a little bit more. I don't know who was there, obviously, so that's not something I have the ability to see. But again, Quinn Miners is a guy who's not going to come in to start next year anyway. So that's that. Frank Darby. Oh man. Again, I understand that a lot of people like Frank Darby. I think he's a good player. He's a very quick player. He can be a very good slot in the NFL. I think he's only going to be a slot in the NFL. The Chiefs have a slot receiver in McCole Hardman. Why are we filling positions of need with guys that they already have? I get it's the fourth round, but if you want to take a wide receiver, get someone who's bigger, has a little bit more of a physicality to get off a press. I mean, I get the speed dynamic. They want to just throw speed on the Chiefs and assume that that's all they want. I think they need some tacticians in terms of being able to play on the outside with the speed that can also come into the slot. That's why I talk a lot about Terrence Marshall, Diami Brown. These two guys that can really be field stretchers, but also can play the X position, which they need. Sammy Watkins isn't here anymore. You have Byron Pringle and Demarcus Robinson, who Let's just be honest. DeMarcus is not going to get 1,000 yards next year, guys. He's not going to do it. We all really like Byron Pringle. We really like Byron Pringle. He's been behind Robinson on the depth chart for a while. I get he was finally starting to come up a little bit last year. So you hope that he takes that projection. Just hoping. So a guy like Frank Darby comes in who's smaller than either of them, can really only play in the slot in the next level, in my opinion. And this is where we start to get to the point where I'm not as knowledgeable about the player. So again, cornerback, yeah, I get it. Chauncey Goldston, edge, yeah, this is where I project them going with an edge in the 4th or the 5th round. So just kind of throwing bodies at a wall here, I can understand that for the most part. So the first 4 are really what the guys I wanted to talk about, because those really are guys I think that are going to have an opportunity, depending on who you get, to actually come in and make some noise in their first year. I mean, I only say that for a 4th round pick because of guys like the L'Jarius Sneed, who the Chiefs did their due diligence on. That's something that you can't really account for, taking a guy off the wall like that. So now we're going to get into the main event. The main event. Todd Mcshea and Mel Kiper do their stuff all the time with really no regard to anything. They just throw stuff around. Feels like they just say, oh, we're hearing this, let's go ahead and throw it on a mock. Like, it's almost as if they don't really do much research with the team's needs. Obviously, we all know this is going to be 1 and 2. Like, that's obvious. So this is Todd McShea's predictions. I believe this is last week, the 5th of April, if I'm not mistaken. Let's go up to the top. Yeah, April 5th. This is his latest that I've seen myself. So let's go all the way down at 31 here. See what we got. So, while it's not a bad player, I like Azeez Ojulari. I do. But let's just take a few seconds here and see who goes off after. Who's a bigger need? Zaven Collins, probably a bigger need than edge. I know that a lot of people think that edge is a way bigger of a concern in terms of going to get one to start for the next few years, but I'm not one of those people. I think Zaven Collins is a better pick than Azeez Ojulari. I think he's overall a better player, and he's going to provide the Chiefs at 31. I don't like Tutu Atwell, so good thing he went there. Eichenberg, again, that's a whole arm length issue. We don't know what the Chiefs are going to do with that. Javonte Williams, running back, Ronnie Perkins. Oh, and there it is. Hey, look at that. 37, Rashad Bateman. Should have been a Chief. What is this? Why are we putting players on the Chiefs that they don't need for a guy that they do need? Rashad Bateman would be the number 2 receiver on this team tomorrow, the day after he was drafted. If we come in and it would be Tyreek Hill, or Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and Rashad Bateman. That's what it would be. How do you do that? If you're not going to take an offensive player, you're not going to take an offensive lineman, you can take an offensive player and help improve Patrick Mahomes' ability to play. Rashad Bateman is a guy that comes in and immediately is the number 2 receiver on the team. Immediately. He replaces what Sammy Watkins does and gives you the speed element too that the Chiefs really want. They can play in the outside. He can play in the slot. He can do it all. You can get him the ball on bubble screens. He can go do whatever you want him to do. So why are we taking a defensive end? Why is that happening? This is the kind of thing that happens every single mock draft with these people. They just throw defensive bodies at the wall when in reality, the defense isn't hugely bad. They run a very large rotation on the defensive line. That's typically what they do. They want their starters, and I get Azeez Ojulari in terms of being a guy who would come in and essentially start across from Frank Clark for a while. I think that's a possibility. Would he be the starter year 1? I don't know. I can't say that he would be. I think that, again, it's a rotation. So you could see Mike Dana starting in terms of being a run stopper. Tucker Charlton could come in. He's a better pass rusher right now. That's just he's better overproductive. Azeez Ojulari would be a third type of guy you can rotate in there. I don't think he's a starter right away. Rashad Bateman comes in, he's a starter right away. It's weird to me. Weird to me. So we're gonna go down to 63. Let's see what we got down here. Bet you it's another reach. I haven't even looked at this yet. I just pulled it up and I didn't realize I did two rounds. So let's go ahead. Let's see what we got. Walker Little. Oh man, they're making it too easy. This is a bad pick. This is a bad pick of a guy that you don't have a clue what he's going to be. This is all based on projection. It's all based on projection. I couldn't finish off the two round mock without giving the Chiefs an offensive tackle. Just decided to throw one in there. Value not there in round one. I get that. Little might be a stretch here at 63. Yeah, it is. Little is a massive and effective run blocker. How do you know? You haven't played since 2018. Haven't seen him do anything. Oh, there's plenty of risk here. So you basically say, I gave the Chiefs an offensive tackle based purely on projection from the years that he played, the 2 years that he played in 2017, 2018, to now, and how risky it is that we do this. This is ridiculous. What are we doing? I get that the value's not there in the first round, but then they throw a defensive tackle when Rashad Bateman's on the board, and then they just decide to throw an offensive tackle you haven't seen in 2 years because, oh, why not? He looked pretty good in 2018. Well, you can't take a guy who hasn't played in 2 years in the first. I wouldn't take him in the first 2 days. I wouldn't. And I get that, yeah, he has pedigree. He's got the size. He has the frame, the body, the athletic profile. I get it. But what have you seen in the last 2 years that tell me that knee injury is fine, that it's not going to affect him long term? And yeah, he opted out. He probably was getting ready to play. Yeah, he's getting ready to play. An effective run blocker. Didn't say anything about pass protection, but you want to know why? Because he wasn't that good in pass pro in 2018. Stanford is a very run heavy team, so they run the football a lot. He's not a great pass protector, and he wasn't then either. You're going to draft a tackle who was played an offense that was basically built around running the football, not protecting Patrick Mahomes. That doesn't make any sense. So I'm all the way out on this mock here from Todd Mcshea. But let's go to I pulled up this one already. Yeah, let's go to the next one with Mel Kiper's. This one came out today, actually. Jason Oway. 100% projection-based player. Again, this is the kind of thing that they're doing. It does not have to be offensive tackle or edge rusher, by the way. Wide receiver makes way more sense. Again, we talked about that. Let's just see if there's someone on the board that goes after Oway that would intrigue me at 31. Tony, not so much. And I know I was really big on him coming into this whole process, but I really soured to him. So, and this is something that I've heard around the league is that Dyami Brown is a hot commodity. We'll see if he ends up going that high. I wouldn't have taken him at 31, so I get it. So Dickerson, 39. I don't see any other wide receivers going here. Mari Rogers, nah. Okay, so players in terms of, see, Terrence Marshall went to the Ravens. That seems to be a pretty big fit. Bateman to the Packers again. I would probably rule this out because the Packers do not care about giving Aaron Rodgers weapons. So there's that. But again, here we're talking about Jason Oway, a guy who was 100% projection. He's an extremely raw athlete. We talked about him actually last night. He's not a guy who's going to come in and start. This is all based on his athletic profile and the way that he ran a 4.36 40. Cool. And as Ryan pointed out last night, he did not have very many pressures in his last year. He had no sack production, and it's all based on projection. These picks for the Chiefs are all based on players that have potential, but nothing that can come in and actually do anything right away, in my opinion. And Oway is one of those uniquely designed picks. He's not going to come in and immediately just break the roster and be a starter and really just have a huge impact. That's not going to happen. He needs time to learn how to use his athleticism to his advantage. That's going to take some time. Again, they even say sacks aren't everything. They don't talk about his pressures, though. Around the football, QB hits, pressures, sacks, it's important. All of it together is important. One thing does not make a player, but when you put it all together and he's not pressuring the quarterback very much, that's a problem. That's a problem. So let's go all the way down to 63. See what we got. See some of these players that I missed. There's Tryon at 44. Eric Stokes, Richie Grant, Tutu Atwell. I can't believe he's going this high. Anthony Schwartz. Cosme at 54. That's good value. Dylan Radens is there at 55, about where I've got him pegged near the back half of the first round. Eichenberg would fall at 58. Interesting. Rondale Moore into the 60. Whoo! Jackson Carman is actually a guy I really like. Really like. And again, Walker Little. Oh, man. Again, I'm not going to go back into it. You guys heard what I think. It's just kind of bordering on laughable with the things that they want to do to the Chiefs. Two guys who are nationally respected media members throwing defensive end and tackle just on the board for the Chiefs without basically any other research about it. Doesn't make any sense. The guys are just breed projection. They just scream projection. So why can't they actually do some of the research and look a little bit differently? I don't think that Walker Little can possibly be a second round pick. If he is, and you're really hoping he's coming in. And I'm totally okay being wrong saying this, by the way. I don't care. But I don't think he's going to come in and play in the NFL and be a starter because you don't know. And that's got to scare teams off. It has to. Knee injury, opt out. There's so much unknown about a player like that. There's so much unknown. But again, I digress about the mock drafts, guys. So mock drafts are what they are. So let's finish today with just a little bit of the Orlando Brown stuff, because this is something that we've all talked about a lot. And I see that Chiefs fans are really using that Twitter account the NFL Rumors Twitter account to bump their needs that the Chiefs need to go ahead and trade for Orlando Brown. Now, I know that before the Chiefs traded for Frank Clark, there was little to no buzz about what they were going to do. And they did need a defensive end. And we all kind of thought they were going to draft a defensive end. Cleveland Ferrell was actually one of the guys that I had mocked to the Chiefs at 31 or in that area multiple times. So I can understand. And they didn't actually trade for Frank Clark until 2 days before the draft. That's an interesting little tidbit I got from Matt Lane. So I just forgot about it. But I don't see the Chiefs going out of their way to to trade for Orlando Brown, who's not exactly a scheme fit. And why would the Ravens voluntarily help the Chiefs? If this is, like we talked about again, if this is going to happen, that means it's going to be a huge draft capital loss for the Chiefs. The only way the Ravens would want to help out the Chiefs is if they're getting quite a bit of draft capital in return in terms of 2+ first-round draft picks. Then you have to pay the guy who only wants to play left tackle when he was a right tackle. It's not a question for me. It's not a question. He's not. I wouldn't even trade for him if it was just the first round draft pick, because then you're going to have to pay him anyway, and he's not necessarily a scheme fit. You don't know what he's going to be in Kansas City. He was okay. He was better than we all thought he was going to be. He's a good player. He's still young. He's 25, I think, and he's a good gap scheme, power scheme fit at tackle. He does not really do much with his athleticism to play in a zone. And that's not saying that he couldn't come in and play zone. I don't know that for a fact. He definitely could. But I don't think the Chiefs are going to go try to give away multiple first-round draft picks for a guy that they're going to have to pay. We don't know how the draft's going to fall. Again, we talked about arm length ad nauseum, really. So for me, it's a big no, and I don't even understand some of the buzz around it. I haven't seen anything. Ryan hasn't seen anything. We don't have a clue what's actually going to happen, but I don't believe the Ravens would voluntarily help the Chiefs unless it's going to be a huge win for them with draft capital. So there's that. And, I know this was a little more harder to follow for you guys. So this is my first time doing something like this. So if you guys would appreciate it, just go ahead and let me know in the comment section. If you liked more off the cuff kind of talk about it, we could do whatever you guys want to do in the comment section. You can just put down whatever you guys want to talk about. We can just go on tirades about it. It doesn't bother me any. I enjoy just kind of hashing out things and talking about football in general. It doesn't have to necessarily be about the Chiefs. But again, most of the stuff that we're going to talk about has to do with these mock drafts right now because they're nonsense. They're just nonsense. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. So with that said, I hope you guys have a good Tuesday night and you have a great rest of your week. The draft is almost here. It's almost here. And then we're really going to get into these players, how they're going to help the Chiefs out in the long term and what they're going to be able to do this coming season. So we're looking forward to it. Hopefully you guys can help us get through this because it's almost here and we're just trying to get through it as fast as we can because as soon as we get there, that's when the fun really happens. We can just kind of have those live streams with you guys and really enjoy the draft process. So again, thank you guys so much. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.